Yeah. Okay, so we're going to talk about after your introduction to linguistics, and then I believe you had the phonology, phonetics and phonology with Dr. Badrul Zaman, Abdul Hamid, and also Dr. Lim Hui Won. And now we are back into grammar. You know, so grammar is actually consisting of morphology and syntax. Um, so morphology is the study of word and its word forms. And then syntax is the study of the sentence structure, sentence type in a language. So we will look at the inner structure of the words and morphological rules involved in the formation of the words. Um, so we also interface, I call it, which is called the relationship between morphology and syntax, morphosyntax. For certain affixation, for example, you have to look at one of the reason for the change in the form is uh, the phonology actually. Yeah. So we're going to look at morphophonology syntax. Uh, Particularly the effect of certain morphological process or phonological process on certain words into the related synthetic structures. Okay, and then we will look at the syntax component, which is the morphology. We start with morphology, the words, but when you put them together, when you put the words together, it becomes a phrase. You put the phrase together, it becomes a sentence. So we then proceed to the syntax sentence component of the grammar. We will look at the phrase structure rules of Malay. We will look at the concepts, for example, subcategorization. That means certain words will require certain conditions. So they will say, they will determine what can occur with them. So we need to talk about the specific specific requirement of each word. Okay, then we look at the lexicon. Lexicon basically all the words, the lexical entry, and then there will be the processes of syntactic process of merge and feature matching will be introduced. Maybe can everyone mute? Yeah, someone is not muting and I can hear the sound. That will it will disrupt the clarity of the recording. Yeah. So the sentence type, we will also look at the sentence type. For example, simple sentence, compound sentence, and complex sentence. We will also look into the movement, the noun phrase movement and the WH movement in these sentences. And then all that you have learned will be applied to analyzing language sample. So this is the practical side of it. So we've explored the theoretical part, linguistic part, and then now we want to see, okay, given a language sample, what do we do? So morphology and syntax will tell you what you can do with the language sample. Okay. These are the books that I used. The Buji 2012 and Carney 2012. This is we have in soft copies. I'll pass to you the soft copy, or I'll direct you to the website of books where you can actually find a lot of books which can be downloaded in PDF. Okay. So then this is the hasil pembelajaran kursus, course outcome. We want to explain the basics concepts of morphology and syntax. You might say, why am I learning this? if I'm going to be a speech therapist. But you have to understand that the content of what you are managing is language. So the content of what you're managing in your client is language. You're looking at their utterances, you're looking at their words. So that is the reason why this course is offered in speech language therapy course, because you need to know what is the word morphology and how it is used in a sentence. And then we want to apply the basic concepts to analyze data, language samples. There are some diagnostics of morphology and syntax that we can use to test the structure of constituents in a sentence. So we will learn about that and we will learn how to do it. I think we've done some of it in some introduction of it to diagnostics in Introduction to Linguistics. The one that I taught. Okay. And then we will do the language sample. For this time, we don't want a final exam. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a problem-based learning component. Okay, and that will also involve a language sample or even some problem regarding word or syntax. Okay, so this is hasil pembelajaran program. So this is hasil pembelajaran kursus. Kan? Then you know hasil pembelajaran program, which is 8 of them. And then this is the, you need to, so actually then we map the hasil pembelajaran kursus to the methods of assessment, but I'm going to change that. I'm going to use this one, penaksiran ni kan. So penaksiran ni, this is actually a learning course, you know. It is a bit more. It's a bit technical. Be prepared for it, because when you read, you'll be reading textbooks which are deep into morphology and syntax. So, but that information is not that it is directly applicable to you, but that information is important as a foundation so that you understand when you get into clinic and you have to do language sample. When you are faced with a client and you are talking to the client, immediately your mind will be thinking, what is the developmental for his developmental stage for word formation, for sentence formation. Yeah. So we will connect that to developmental. So this course is a learning course. You have to learn. You have to mark. Call it mugging. You have to study hard. So there will be 2 quizzes, 10 each, 10%. And then, I can put here. No, yes. And then we will be working in groups. We have to do this, because I think the essence of speech therapy is group work. Even when you are out in the field, when you are out working in hospital, whatever, you have to do group work. You have to communicate with other professionals in the field. So this is a grounding for group work. So I think a lot of our courses are group work. So we're going to maybe after this, you and your class rep will discuss about how to form the group. So it could be like a polling, where you do a doodle. Dah dengar tak doodle? Zintong.
Yes, doctor.
Have you heard doodle?
No, before.
You just Google, see what doodle is. So doodle is a software, DOODLE. It's an online software or page where you can do polling, whereby you can, let's say we want to, so Zintong, you can actually decide randomly. Also, you can group your friends randomly. It depends lah, but Doodle makes it easier because we are all online. If we are face to face, then at least we can do a poll, or we can apa tu, pick lots can. But we are online, so Doodle is a good way. Is to do polling, to do election, let's say, many things with Doodle. And it's you can get the basic one, which is not, you don't have to pay. Okay, so to be fair, we want to divide 22 of you into 22. So if you do a 5, 4, 2 extra. No, I think 4 is okay. Kalau no, 5, sorry, 5 groups, 4 people. 5 groups, 4 people, and then 2 groups will have 5 people. So 1, 2, 3, 4 will have 4 people, and then 5, sorry, 1, 2, 3 will have 4 people, and then 4, 5 will have 6 people. Can 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. Huh? Zinta? 3 groups with 4 people and 2 groups with 6 people, with 5 people. 4 plus 5, yeah. That's all 5. Okay. So we're gonna do group because all along it's going to be group. Huh? So we're gonna go from the assignment. Yeah, from the assignment where you have to collect a language sample. So you're gonna analyze, you're gonna transcribe, then analyze the language sample, and then you're going to present. So this is oral presentation. Pembentangan, 20%. The essay that you're going to give me at the end of the semester is 25%, which is basically coming out from the same oral presentation. So you're presenting the same thing. So that is the essay. All right, and then the PBL. The PBL is two tasks. And this also goes with the group, the same group. And then we are actually not having a final exam, so we are ending with everything is 100%, with PBL 35%. So no final. Get very sticky exam right now. Is it lah? This is me, and I'm at Segi. I'm at language. At the Kota Damansara campus. Okay. And then my okay. Then you can go and visit me at my research FB page. I don't want you to go to academia, you go to research it. The research gate. So let me see. I'll put it later lah. The link. Okay. And then you can also WhatsApp me because I'm not physical. Easier for you. WhatsApp me. That's it. Okay. And then I want to show you assignment. Can you see? Can you see written assignment?
No, Doctor.
Not yet.
I'm going to share again. Assignment. This is 2062. for your new curriculum, NS 2062. Linguistic data. Written assignment. You have to analyze the language sample of 100 utterances. I encourage you to collect your own sample actually, because you want to get the experience of collecting a language sample. In my language sample, I require that you have the child, adult, or adult, child. It's a complete language sample. It's not a sample which only has a child, because when we want to analyze the language sample, we need to know the context. What did the adult say? And the child replies to the adult. So if you don't have the adult's part, it's sometimes hard to retrieve the meaning of what is being talked about. Okay, so I've seen language samples which only has child. I don't want that. I want a language sample which has child with everything. Yeah, the people talking. But of course, let's say if the child, you have the adult and then the child, two child, let's say, and only one child is of focus, then you can indicate that which child that you are analyzing. Yeah? So you say on the outset, you say the child is this child number one, child one, you know. But I think you need to transcribe the whole thing. Okay, so because it's a group work, so I hope you will divide the work, especially in the first part where you have to analyze the language sample. So you have to collect, choose a subject. I guess you can do it on Malay, English, Mandarin, Tamil. But except, I think except for so for Mandarin, Tamil, etc., you need to have a gloss. Gloss is word per word. Word per word translation and a translation. I'll show you later lah what it is. So analyze a language sample. No, collect. So say collect a language sample. Then this one, choose a subject, etc. Child should be 3+ is okay. 3+, 6, 11 years old. So you collect a language sample. You can allocate to your, divide the you analyze. So when you analyze an example, will be, so one is morphology. So you have to look at the words that are used by the child in the spontaneous. Language sample can be setting can be spontaneous speech. That means playing, playing. If you can get a child to do a narrative, that's okay also. But it's difficult actually, actually story written. The other one is relating experience. Relating experience. Meaning, ask them to tell what they did last holiday. Did they go? What did they do? Ask them to tell you. So that's relating experience. Or talk about sports day. What happened during the sports day? So that's relating experience. You can do a combination because sometimes the combination is better. So that means you have two setting. But let's say two setting will be 50-50 lah. 50 for playing, 50 for relating experience, let's say. So you can divide, but total has to be 100. So setting can be spontaneous speech, which is quite good. If you can get the child to talk, you can do story retelling, which is difficult actually for children, unless for a talkative child maybe, and relating experience. And you can do choose one or combination of any two. Setting, no problem. Then you translate, right? Okay, then so you talk about, so you once you have an example, you can identify what kind of morphemes that's being used, free bound morphemes, what kind of words, what is the mean length utterance of each utterance in the sample, MLU, get the MLU, what is the type token ratio of the sample, what are the morphological processes used, and then based on all this analysis, you will write a description about the morphology skills of the child. Yeah. So this one, I would like to see it like after your midterm. You can after midterm and submit assignment. Morphology. We'll decide the date later. And then syntax, the same language sample. You look at how what type of sentences the child use. What is the sentence patterns? What are the syntactic process? Subcategorization frames. Describe the syntactic rules. Relate or format. Same for any assignment. You have to have a introduction. And usually introduction, you must give the personal details of the child. Especially date of birth is very important. Family history a little bit. How many? What child in what? In how many children? Then you give us the content of the analysis, and then you have to support your description of the child with support with reference. That means you must do a bit of reference from literature, from previous studies. Okay. I will give you in class readings that I have from myself and other people for the local studies, but you also need to look into the internet to see, like go into Google Scholar. Google Scholar and then go into Google Scholar. Look for Google Scholar and then go inside there. The articles are more the academic ones. Like if it's just Google, normal Google, everything will come out, including the academic. But for Google Scholar, you will get the academic ones, the journal articles. And then based on, so we will be talking about developmental in terms of morphosyntax. So you need to determine what is your opinion about the child that you're studying, whether the child is developing typically based on other local studies on Malay children or Chinese speaking children, Chinese children, etc. Okay, then you do a conclusion. So as you can see, actually, when actually even when you do the syntax, you can take some of your findings in your morphology to describe the syntax, so no problem. Okay, so this is the rubric, and then you must include the transcription of the conversation as appendix. I want to see that. Then this is the rubric for exam, for me assessing your assignment. Whether you summarize the morphology and syntax data and use your own words. I think, if I'm not mistaken, this semester you're taking the academic writing, right? So the lecturers in that course will tell you how to write academic text. Use your own words. You can use other people's words, but you have to cite them. But it's better to use your own words and then rephrase what they are saying. And then you connect the data with relevant theory of child language development in terms of morphology and syntax. You relate your findings to other researchers. I prefer 5 articles about that, can be more, but not less. 5 articles between 2017 and 2022. Sorry. One current one, not 1978, 1968, unless it's a classical text. Okay. And then the overall clarity, flow, organization, formatting. You will learn also formatting and academic writing. Please apply it here too. Summarize, conclude, implication. Okay. All right. And then I was going to write about the PBL, but PBL is going to be so the PBL is also going to be on morphology and syntax. It's problem learning. I give you a problem and you try to describe how you're going to manage the problem. It could be a clinical problem, but it could also be a socio-linguistic kind of problem. In terms of text, we will see. But what I anticipate that the 2 PBLs are connected. So one PBL is the introduction, and then the second PBL is application. It's 2 PBL, but 2 related PBL. I don't want you to do 2 different one. 2 related set of problem. 2 related problems. 2 PBL with the same problem lah, with the same situation. That means the situation is the same, but because actually when you have a problem, you need to research about the problem. So the first part would be describing the phenomena, what's happening there. Let's say code mixing, the problem of code mixing in terms of the words, the words used from a different language, for example. And then, or sometimes code mixing could be the structure is from Malay or Mandarin or Tamil, but English is used. Talking English, but the structure is Malay. For example, you can listen and you can hear when we are talking, we are actually using the structure of our native language, but just filling it with English words. So we'll be talking about that. But before we explain the problem, we need to talk about what is code mixing, what does the scholar say about code mixing, when does it happen, types of code mixing. So that's the first part of the PBL, and then the second part will be you addressing the problem itself. Okay, any question about the so far? Clear? Never mind, if you have questions, you can ask me. All right, so now going back, I'm going to share the PowerPoint. This one. Ah, not this one. This is first one. Not that one yet. This one. You can see the PowerPoint, eh? Okay, morphology. So, to be in the state of mind about what is language, we need to think about what is language. So, language has different function. It is a way. It is how we communicate. It is a means of communication. So we can communicate through language, but we can also communicate with other modes of communication, like visual, um, visual photos, or sign language, or gestures, for example. But language is more complete, comprehensive, a mode of communication which is comprehensive. It is also a vehicle to acquire information. So, you know, when students, when kids, they get into school, standard 1, so let's say during preschool, they are introduced to language, to learning how to read and write. They have to master that. They have to master the literacy skills of reading and writing. And then when they get into standard 1, it gets academic. Academic means now they have learning subjects that they have to, so they have to have the language in order for them to acquire the information, because all the other subjects are language based. Bahasa Melayu is language, but I don't know, mathematics needs language, science needs language, everything needs language. So if they don't have language, then that is a problem, because one is they have to learn reading and writing, and then they have to acquire the information, which they can't do if they cannot read, let's say. So language is a very important vehicle to acquire information. So that's why we always stress to our parents that their child has to be, the child's language has to be stimulated, right? So we tell parents to talk to their child, because good oral language skills is a strong precursor to good academic. That means if their oral language skills are good, then the probability of them learning to read is very high, and then they can acquire the information. So it is a very good thing to promote. Make your child be actively using language. And then it's also a means to think through ideas and problems. So through language, you have the capacity to mull ideas and how to solve problems. It also expresses our individual and cultural identity, because we are a social being. We are always in a community, right? So we have our own individual personality, but we are among our family, among our relatives, among our neighborhood, our environment around us. We are part of the community, so we will have the cultural identity of the community that we are identified with, ethnic community, for example. And then we establish and maintain social context through language. So language is like a cement. Like if you look at a building walls, building houses, they start with the red bricks, right? The building bricks. So language is the cement tu lah, which put the bricks together. You put the cement in between the bricks so that it stays put, and then after it dries, it will be secured. So language is that cement, which is establishing and maintaining social context. So you find sometimes that we use language just for that purpose. Like you start something, you say, hi, assalamualaikum, how are you? That is social, fatigue communion, we call it. We say it because that's what we do when we first meet someone. How are you? How are you doing? Hope you're fine. But people don't really take it take it and reply. They also know that that is to maintain social contact. So you don't tell your problems to someone who asks you how are you. You just say, even though you're not feeling well, you just say I'm fine. I'm good. A bit on under the weather, but I'm okay. And also for creative expression, of course. So language as a means for fulfilling intra or interpersonal function. So the focus is on the linguistic form and the relation between the form and the meaning. So we always want to distinguish between language function, language form, and language meaning. So in morphology, that's what we do. We look at the language function. What is the function of the process? What is the form? And what is the meaning? So for example, you have this sentence, the thief Pete's purse stole has taken all the money. So this sentence, basically, if you look at it, you kind of know what the meaning is. You know that stole is the verb, and then someone purses is being stole. So the Pete's purse, and then who? Maybe the thief, because stealing is always by the thief, right? So these sentences are perfectly communicative, but has a problem with the form. The function, we sort of know that it wants to convey a meaning of a statement. So the function is okay. The meaning we can retrieve, but it is not acceptable in the form and needs to be corrected. So adequate in function and meaning, yet not in form. Then we have this, which is a language sample of a child, and he's describing something. So he's saying, dalam itu dia ada pagar, orang tu tangkap, letak kat pagar, pastukan orang yang tangkap ular tu kan, dia suruh kita. Siapa paling kuat? Siapa paling kuat? Kacau buaya, siapa paling kuat? So, even though it's a 8 months child telling the story, there is the content. It's just that he doesn't know how to start the story. There is a structure to the story. So when we are telling the story, we will start with the setting. Hari itu saya pergi ke Taman Buaya di Air Keruh Melaka. Di situ, then we are telling people that what's the setting? You visited a Taman Buaya. Where is it? Di Air Keruh Melaka. Apa ada kat situ? So we'll tell that first, and then baru kita cerita story. But for this child, he doesn't have that structure yet. So he will just tell whatever he wants to say, but the meaning is there. It's for us to retrieve the meaning. So after a while, we sort of figure out that it is buaya and ular. Buaya dan ular, and then there is orang. Orang tu is probably the trainer of these animals. It's a show. It's an animal show. Animal show, and the person is holding the snake and asking people, dia suruh kita pegang, lepas tu orang yang tangkap pegang, dia suruh kita. Oh, I see. Then the trainer actually say, who is brave enough to disturb the crocodile? Siapa paling kuat? So in this instance, the form is like okay. There is meaning, there is some sort of structure. It's just the story is not organized in the normal storytelling structure, but can be understandable. I don't know what this is. I think I have this one. This one, is another conversation. This is on an adult agrammatic aphasia patient. He's telling his HA, and he's telling the therapist. And he's actually telling the therapist what happened when he had the stroke. But you notice the language, sakit dulu, malam petang, pukul 5 pagi, apa? Pukul 6. Jaga kan? Jaga tak ni berak lah. Apa? Malam macam apa? So this is characteristic of people who lose their expressive language ability after they have had a stroke. So he's like doing a circumlocution. Circumlocution means he's trying to tell you something, but he's trying to tell you the time that the episode happened, but he goes like malam, petang, and then pagi. So actually he wants to say it happened in the morning when he woke up. But he goes round and round. To tell you one thing, he has to go round and round. Because the stroke has impacted his language component in his brain. He also has word finding difficulties. He's trying to tell you something, but the words he wants to say one word, but he goes and use many words. And then the therapist help him. Tak boleh bangun itu semua. Lepas tu pukul. So Pila ni di apa? And the therapist say klinik. Klinik lah. Di doktor lah. So it shows in this conversation, it shows clear communicative intention. That means HA is trying to tell the therapist what happened. Although the meanings are not filled out in his language. That means he has gaps in his language. So when you meet a patient like this, obviously you need to know morphology and syntax to understand what is happening. Okay, the words that he tend to use, and one of the things that you can help him with is word finding. He has word finding difficulties. You train him on how to train his ability on word finding, and then help him to do some activities for word finding. Okay, so that's how morphology is very important for speech therapists. Never say it's not important. It's very important. It's what you are managing. Okay, let's go back to the previous. Okay, let's say this one. So we saw the importance of form and function and meaning. We saw that people, young kids, their language is still developing, so they don't acquire certain structures. So, but they do want to speak. They do have the words. And then you see another example, an adult with language problems. So, but when you listen, you get the gist behind what they are trying to say, although they miss out certain details. So, so when we talk, we write, we have definite meaning intention, but we might not be able to convey this with recognizable or appropriate forms. This happens to us also when we are communicating. Let's say when we are tired, if someone asks me late night yesterday at 11 p.m. let's say, I'll be like groggy, I'll be tired, I'm ready to go to bed. So my answers will be very short, maybe not informative. So it does influence the communication. Okay, for the patient just now, also for the child. For the child, more of trying to get at what is it that he's trying to say lah. But for the adult, it double trouble. The first trouble is getting to figure out what he wants to say, and then figuring out the forms that he uses. That one you have to look at the characteristics of people with agrammatic aphasia and see what is the research that's being written about them and the description about them. Okay. see what we miss. Okay, I need to rearrange this. So let's say we have we're talking about morphology just now. So we're looking at words. So now we're looking at words. Desert, design, fight, kill, deserter. So we have desert, deserter. We have desert. We have desert, deserter, design, designer, fight, fighter, and kill and killer. So what we do is we look at a group of words and we look at the forms that are occurring repeatedly. So if you look at desert and deserter, you'll find that in deserter there's desert, and then the form that is new is er. Okay, and then you look at the second set of words, the same thing, the word is er, same, the paradigm is the same, the words share er. So this is we look at the meaning of these words and we know that they are talking about the doer of an action, but it comes from the verb, and then it becomes a verb. No, it becomes a noun, right? Because er is a nominal. Okay. So morphology is also used for the sequence of rules postulated by the linguist to account for ways in which words are strung together. So I guess talking about, oh, I see. This one is talking about first we're talking about the order of the word in the word itself, right? But I think this one is talking about, I don't know whether I can still type. Let's see. Talking about, let's say, the deserter, the designer. The designer was applauded at the fashion show, let's say. See the screen? I'm typing. Can see that?
Yes, Doctor.
Yeah.
So when we look at that, the designer was applauded at the fashion show. Then we're looking at the string of words. The words that we saw here, we put it in a sentence. Then we see, okay, the designer was applauded at the fashion show. If we understand the meaning, we know that the designer is the person who received the applause. So he's not the doer, he's actually the object of the verb. Someone else was applauding the designer, right? So this is actually a passive sentence. So this is how a passive sentence are being strung together, and the object is always at the beginning, and then you have a was, past participle, was applauded. You can also say the designer was applauded. So this is a type of passive. Okay, so I think this one is talking about morphology was quite productive, very active analysis discipline under the initial. I think I have to. So so let's say studies of morphology was booming before 1957 because that's where we call structural linguistics, or in psychology they call it behaviorist. Structural linguistics. But then in 1957, Noam Chomsky came up with 1957. He was also a structuralist, Noam Chomsky. So when he one day he wrote a book which actually said that structural linguistics is not adequate to describe the analysis, the linguistic analysis at that time. And then he opened up, and syntax was one of the areas that was booming then under Noam Chomsky. Until now, he's still alive. But after a while, 1970s, we find that the study of morphology flourished again. Okay, we look at that. And now both are, when you combine them, when you say what grammar, what is grammar? Grammar is both morphology and syntax. Okay, so grammar is morphology and syntax. Okay. So if you look at these sentences, A, B, and C, look at in terms of form, function, and meaning. What can you say about form, function, and meaning? Zing Tong, can you upload the class list on under document under this team, linguistic 3 team. So you upload the name list so that I know who's in the class. And then how do you take attendance? Do they scan something or what?
No, I will taking the attendance in Excel.
So you just take.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so look at the sentences. Form, function, meaning. In your own thinking, what do you think about these sentences? Do you have the list, Zinto?
Yes, doctor, I am uploading now.
You could. Sorry, yeah. You also put in WhatsApp.
Doctor, I already upload the name list in the MS Team already.
Can you put it on my, is it okay for you to put it on my WhatsApp?
Yeah, okay, doctor.
All right. Okay. Nurul Atika binti Rosmin. What can you say about the form, function, and meaning? You can choose any of the sentences. Nurul Atika.
Yes. B. The sand glittered loudly in the garage. Loudly itu salah.
Salah.
Salah dekat use ataupun content. Use.
Tapi apa subjeknya? What's the subject of the sentence?
The sand.
What is the sense?
Bau.
Bau kan? Bau ni boleh bersinar. Glisten is sinar, you know, like.
Glistered loudly. Glistered, lepas tu bersinar loudly pula untuk voice, untuk sound.
So the sand can bersinar?
Cannot.
Lepas tu loudly pula. In the garage.
Yes.
So what can you say about the form, function, and meaning? What's the form?
The use of vocab.
The form of the word and the form of the sentence lah. I think this is more of the word, the form of the sentence. Structure of the sentence. But actually, what do you think about the structure of the sentence?
Structure dia okay. Sebab SVO tu dah ada. The send subject, V tu listen and loudly tu verb, and garage tu dia punya object. SVO tu okay.
Actually, sentence B ni kan, dia punya pattern is SV. Dia tak ada object. Dia SV je. Dia SV and then A. A is the adverbial in the garage. So you say the scent glisten, the scent glisten. That's the, and then you have an adverbial AA lah, SVAA pattern ya. Okay, so kalau macam tu meaning dia macam mana? So this actually SVAA. Dia ada form, dia ada function. What about the meaning? Dia cakap meaning ni maksudnya adakah dia bermakna?
Dia ada makna tapi dia salah.
Bila cakap makna tu logik tak? Ada
Tak logik. Tak logik.
Kan. So form and function. But meaning illogical. Illogical ni tak masuk akal. Tak? Okay. Let's try another sentence.
Excuse me, doctor. Can I ask why is the function okay?
Function okay because the function is to produce a sentence, to produce a statement lah. Ayat penyata statement. It does produce a statement. It's just that the content, the content in those units just cannot. In fact, actually, later we will learn that the sense will say I cannot glisten. So dia punya requirement for subcategorization will not allow this. This will actually be kita ada yang selalunya kita kata kan kita kata ungrammatical. Ungrammatical we use an asterisk, and then sometimes you use ungrammatical but understandable. So this one could be with a question mark. Yang ni pun macam question mark jugalah. Tapi the function the function is to produce a statement. Meaning illogical. What about C? Siapa nak cuba C? Any volunteers? C?
Doktor?
Yeah. Siapa?
Afiq.
Afiq.
For me, same as well. Which is the sentence is well formed, but doesn't give logic meaning. Where kita akan pecahkan kepada colorless green ideas, sleep verb, and also furiously tu dia punya adjective Betul.
Furiously, sebab dia ada ly, so dia adverbial.
Adverbial, okay. And so it has the unique individual unique meaning, but bila kita gabungkan dia jadi meaning dia logical. That's
Meaning dia illogical? Logical or illogical?
illogical. Sebab colorless green ideas, macam mana color tu kan nak sleep. That's all.
Alright. Kan, dia macam yeah, same thing like B, form and function okay, because this is the subject, this one is same SV, SVA. So subject, colorless green ideas, sleep is the verb, furiously is the adverb, SVA. So this is A. So good in form but not in function or meaning, I think the meaning, the function is there, sorry, not good in form and function, but not in meaning. No, it's illogical. Okay. Ada soalan? Alright. Tengok banyak apa. And then so what we have seen so far is that children and adults, they have strong communicative intention, but they struggle to put that intention into language. They come up with words which might be too general or do not match the intended meaning, and they struggle to combine words appropriately. But they usually get the basic meaning across. So this is what you need to expect when you are dealing with this population. It's normal, children and adults, especially adults with language impairment. So let's see. So in morphology, there is an intricate relationship between form, function, and meaning. And we need to, I think we need to also reflect that if someone's language is unusual, odd, or does not make sense, then it does not implicate that the person is lazy, confused, or cannot communicate. So the reality is that they have clear and appropriate intention, but have problems in manifesting the language to communicate meaning. Because sometimes in classroom, let's say, teachers think that student is lazy, don't want to communicate, but actually there's a whole lot of other stories behind it. It's not they don't want to be like that. They just cannot. So that's your role as speech language therapist. Okay. So then we also look at grammar. What is grammar? So we have different kinds of grammar. We have prescriptive grammar, which is just like prescriptive medicine. So Tata Bahasa Dewan is a book, it's a grammar book that has rules. And what you've gone through in school, the teachers are teaching you based on Tata Bahasa Dewan. So they will give you marks if you do it correctly, and they will deduct marks if you do it wrong, based on the rules of the grammar. And then teaching grammar, sometimes not the same as prescriptive grammar. Prescriptive grammar is very comprehensive. I don't think the teachers use Tata Bahasa Dewan. You use a different grammar book, but it is based on the prescriptive grammar. So teaching grammar is the books that are used in schools. So they will have activities, assessments. First they will describe the structure, then they will give you exercises to do. Yeah? Then mental grammar. So this mental grammar is very important because this is what the perspective of Noam Chomsky and the theoretical framework that we are going to take in this course, that we have mental grammars, we have the competence, linguistic competence, to acquire language without any specific instruction. Meaning, we look at our children from birth actually until they are 5 years old. It's amazing when you look at small babies. I have a chuchu who is 3 months. So at 3 months, he's now beginning to vocalize recognizable combination of vowels and consonants. Mama, baba, mama, ma, like when he's crying, mama, ma. So he's starting to form. At first, it was just shrieking and crying out with no distinct sound. But now you're becoming to hear the vowels. So you know nobody taught him. The 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, nobody taught them. They don't go to school. They don't memorize. They just listen. They just listen and practice. Listen and speak. Listen and speak. So after a while, at 5 years old, that process of language acquisition is completed. This is very important concept because language acquisition cannot happen if we don't have this. Because what happens is that, let's say if you have a child who is Malay, but for some reason, he's brought up by a Chinese family, let's say. Biologically, he's Malay, but brought up by Chinese family, he will speak Chinese. And then you have a Chinese child who goes being brought up by a Malay family, he will speak Malay. So what does that tell you? That this mental grammar is very powerful. That what they have inside there, according to Chomsky, is the template, language template. I think I described to you universal language template, which is features that are found in all languages. Then we have the specific language template. So it is the specific language template connected to the universal grammar, universal template, that will be triggered when the child is being exposed to the language and when the child starts to use the language. That is the grammar, and that, because of the template, it makes language acquisition effortless. The kids don't have to do much. They just absorb and then they use the language after some time, right? So mental grammar is very important. Then you have descriptive grammar. So descriptive grammar is different from prescriptive. So you have prescriptive grammar and you have descriptive grammar. So descriptive grammar is basically, according to Chomsky, is the idealized forms of mental grammar of all speakers of a language community. So with this notion, in doing descriptive grammar, we don't judge. We only, as linguists, what we do is we record and we transcribe what is being used, what is being said. We take everything in, okay? Compared to prescriptive. Prescriptive will say, no, you don't say it like that, you say it like this. But in descriptive, we just describe all the unit of analysis that we're doing. Morphology, the language, phonology, the sounds, yeah. Just describe without any judgment. Okay, so, and then you use the grammar and then grammar, okay. So then what is morphology? If you look at the etymology of the word, the beginning, the how do you say? The origin of the word. It is by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. So morph is shape and morphology is study of the form, of the forms. In biology, is the study of the form and structure of organisms. Geology, the study of configuration and evolution of landforms. And then we talk about linguistic, it is the mental system that we talked about just now that deals with word formation and words and their internal structure and how the words are formed. So that is morphology for linguistics. But it is also used in others. So if you Google, all these things will come out also. Biology, geology. Then, okay. Then we talk about morpheme, and this is a refresher because we've done it in. I'm going to take my cable. So we've done it in morphology, and it's actually the smallest. A morpheme is. So a morpheme is the smallest linguistic pieces with a grammatical function and meaning. Very important definition. Smallest linguistic pieces with a grammatical function and meaning. Looking at the function, looking at the form, and looking at the meaning. Sometimes some forms, they have all this. But some forms, sometimes they don't have the meaning. For example, grammatical forms. By itself, they don't have a meaning. They have to be used with something else. Let's say di atas, di bawah. Di itu as a preposition will only get its meaning when it is paired with a noun. Then you have the other di imbuhan, where you put the di to, it is a bound morpheme, and you put it to the root word. So then when we discuss that, we say, it's two different words because the function, form, and meaning. The function is different, the meaning is different, but the form D is constant, right? Either you use it as a preposition or you use it as a prefix. It's still the same, DI. But the meaning is different. Okay, so a morpheme may consist of a word or a meaningful piece of word that cannot be divided into smaller, meaningful parts. So as a morphologist, when we look at words, our instinct is to cut the words, to cut the words into segments. But be careful because some of the words cannot be divided into smaller, meaningful units. What is important is that meaningful, it has to be meaningful. So let's say if you take peranti and you want to cut it, you say, oh, per, I've seen per before at the beginning of the word. So I'm going to divide this into per and anti. Then the next question you should ask is it meaningful? Per and anti. Is it a word in the language? No, it's not. This per is not the same as perhangat, let's say. Not the same. So it is a separate form. So both just per and anti, no. Pramugara also. It looks like pra is a prefix, like prakata, prosesi, let's see.
Prasekolah.
Prasekolah, yes. But this pra is different because if you cut pra, then it becomes mugara. So is it a meaningful form? No, it's not. So actually, when we look at morphology, we are looking at the pairing between the sound or the form and the meaning. And we find later that if it's not meaningful, then it might probably be two morphemes. Meaning is very important. It's just like in phonology, you have the minimal pairs like tin and pin. So what's the difference between tin and pin? Okay, so tin and pin. It's the first sound. The t and the p. Yeah, but it's also because the meaning is different. So the sound which is distinguished by meaning, therefore it's two different sounds. Okay, so that is the same thinking that's there. All right, and then we talked about morph. If you remember, in Introduction to Linguistics, a morph is another distinction that we thought morpheme is the smallest, the smallest linguistic unit, but for some of the prefixes, there is another level below, which is called morph. A morph is when the morpheme has different forms. Let's say men, imbuhan men. It has 6 forms. Ber has 3 forms. So in that instance, are all those morpheme? So we say no. They are one morpheme, but they have different morphs, different phonological realization. And you can also see in past tense of English. And they are called allomorphs or variants. Okay. So a morpheme has more than one allomorph. So for example, you see kicked. This is the regular form of the past tense. And then you also have leave, left, hit. So, so the last example shows that the phonological form of the morpheme past tense is not pronounced. So it looks like the same, present tense, hit, past tense, hit, like nothing has happened. But when you say he hit the boy yesterday, of course, the meaning is not the same as he hits people. He hits people every day. The simple present. So he hit the boy yesterday, then it's in the past. So in morphology, we represent it with the root word hit, and this is a morpheme by itself, the zero morpheme, we call it. So hit past tense is hit, the root word, plus the zero morpheme. Okay. And then this one, something is happening with the end of the end of the word, or sometimes like sing and sang. What is happening is there is a vowel change in the middle of the word. So this is also another allomorph. So let's say past tense have the regular and the irregular. And the irregular can consist of this kind of word ending change, or no change, or middle change in the vowels. So these are all allomorphs. So we say past tense, one morpheme, and then it has the different morphs, and these morphs are how do you say, complementary. Each of them express past meaning. Another example, plural. So you have moose, ox, oxen, box, boxes. And then you can see that when we say allomorphs, when you have houses or the books, let's say. So we have books. So we have, let's say, a book. So you have, say, book. You have the let's say, S. You have the S. So this is the regular one. Then you have the irregular one. You notice that box. If you put the en in, like the en, oh sorry, wait. Put it on. So you have the ox, one ox, but many oxen. So so you want to, this is plural. So you want to put boxen, let's say. No, it will not go. This is what we call they are allomorphs. They stay in their own environment. Let's say I don't put ox, one ox, and many oxes, like S. No. So they don't. They stay in their own environment. They don't interfere. They don't go into another allomorphs environment. So that's why we call them allo, alternate. They are alternate to each other, but they are in their own phonological environment. They don't cross. So that's what is called allomorphs or allophones. See, regular and irregular. So there seems to be the different allomorphs have a distinct status. One of them is regular. So this is the default form that appears when speakers are using. So let's say if you want to test, they test a non-word. This is a non-word in English, block. So one block, and then two, people will automatically say blocks. So there was, I think I maybe have explained to you about a child. They did an experiment like this on a child, and then they draw a picture of an animal and they say this is a wog, W-O-G. And then they show the child two of that animal, and the child automatically says two wogs. So then they decided that that's the default form for plural, and then the rest are all allomorphs. Okay? You just have to memorize the forms. Okay, and the default cases are called plurals, and the rest you need to memorize. All right. I think this is the same thing lah. Let me go back. So there are two types of allomorphy. We have the plural morpheme in English, which has between the dogs and the churches, so S and the ES. These are predictable based on the environment. Like before the G, you use S, before the Ch, you use ES. So predictable. But there are also sometimes past tense allomorphy which are not predictable. So for example, break into broke, stake. You can't say stole. Yeah, so they are irregular verbs. And then this is the non-affixal morphology, where it is more connected to the function of the morphology, some morphological function. So as I said just now, there seems to be a change in the stem in the middle, which is a vowel. The vowel I into vowel A, goose and geese. So it's actually they call it non-affixal morphology. I mean, it's not morphology, it's more phonology. Rather, the phonology of the stem of the root has changed. So this is called, but the change in the form is associated with a particular meaning, right? So these are called non-affixal morphology. So in Malay, we have, kenapa kita kata Bukit Bukau? Bukit Bukau, Siang Siur, all those, where there is a change in the vowel. So these are the examples of stem changing. Yeah, you have the three forms. Sing, sang, sung. This is the past participle. Simple past and then present. Begin, began, begun. This is for English lah. So you can find that the change in the stem. Vowel I to vowel A to vowel U. But it's not consistent, right? Is it? Not really. Like begin, began, begun. It's similar to sing, sang, sung. But sit, there's no sit, sat. Then participle also sat. Come, came, participle, come. So English is very complex in that sense, because as a learner of English, you just have to memorize what's happening. Another pattern. Well, sometimes the stem change does not occur with an affix. In some cases it does. So like break, broke, broken. Freeze, froze, frozen. But tell, told, told. So very irregular. All right. 12:36. Any question? Ada soalan tak? Nak tanya? Ada yang tak faham ke? Reading, where is it? I saw it. Let me look at the reading. Saya cari dulu. Material. It is an online book. I will pass to your rep. But maybe we should read chapter 1, the introduction. I cannot find it here. But what we can do is we can read, and then I will ask you questions about the reading next time. So for the first hour, we can do a tutorial kind of, for you to get into the thinking of morphology. So we're going to read what the author says about morphology in general, what is done, what you need to think of, and then we can continue with how to identify morpheme. I wonder, in my introduction to linguistics the other time, did I show you, have I talked to you about identification of morpheme? I'm not really sure which is this one. So I'm going to show you. What's this one? Yeah, which is identification of morpheme actually. Ingat tak? Siapa ingat? Oh, sorry, no. Meaning, what? Identification of morpheme. Cerita kat you. How to identify morphemes? Huh? Yang ni. Siapa ada memory yang bagus? Battery is running low. Okay. Siapa ingat? Saya ada cerita tak pasal principle identification of morphemes, and then I cerita principle 1, principle 2. Mana tak? Principle 2. Siapa yang memory-nya kuat? Sekarang lah nak menunjukkan kebolehan. Ada tak? Tak adalah kot ya. Dia ada 6 principle actually. So this is ada.
I think we haven't go through the principle.
Haven't,
Last year, haven't.
Okay, since we have time, we're going to do that. So, because when you do morphology, you have to know the basis of how you decide whether it's a morpheme or not. Okay, so there are principles that are being suggested for you to choose when you are doing those identification of morphemes. So identification of morphemes, the general principle is that we divide a word into segments until it is no longer divisible in terms of its meaning and or its grammatical function. So in a sense that it has to be meaningful. The word has to be a word that is used in the language, and then it has its function. Okay, so that's the general thing. So then we go to principle 1. So principle 1 says we look at a form, or you look at forms which have a common semantic distinctiveness, a strong meaning lah, and an identical phonemic form in all their occurrences. They will constitute a single morpheme. So then we look at the words worker, dancer, runner, and walker. And you find that in terms of the ER is constant, so phonemic form is constant. And then when you look at the function, it's actually it produces not nouns. produces nouns from verbs. So it produces nouns lah. What's important is the output kan. So the output is production of nouns. So function is okay. What about the meaning? So this the meaning is quite strong in terms of every occurrence of ER will convey the meaning of agent or doer. Right? So ER in A carries the meaning of doer. So confirm ER is a morpheme. Then you look further into the language and you find, there's another ER. So what is the other ER? The other ER is in words like smaller, deeper, wider, and broader. Then the question that you need to ask is it the same with A? As a group, the B words, the words in B conveys comparative. Smaller. A is smaller than B. B is deeper than A, for example. So you are actually comparing two things. So it's a comparative meaning. So ER in B carries the comparative meaning. So for these two sets of words, within the set, they are the same morpheme. But when you compare ER with worker and ER in smaller, there are two different morphemes. So in English, there are two morphemes for ER. One is the doer, and one is the comparative. Of course, these are grammatical morphemes. So in principle 1, so we decide this using principle 1. Okay. In terms of Malay, so Malay, we look at bulatan, keratan, edaran. And this, the meaning is it produces, it shows that it is like a product of something. So sesuatu tu menjadi bulatan apabila dibuat satu structure yang berbentuk bulatan, let's say kerat. So you kerat surat khabar, lepas tu dia jadi keratan hasil. Edar is distribute, but when you surat atau memo you edar kepada kaki tangan, dia jadi edaran. So dia hasil, menunjukkan produk, versus larian versus pameran, ramalan. So the an here in this group more like talking about peristiwa, event. Satu larian, pameran, ramalan. So these are events. So in Malay also we can use the same principle 1, to show that the an in the group is same bentuk, sama fungsi dan sama makna dalam kumpulan C. Tetapi then dalam kumpulan yang kedua ni dia samalah dalam kumpulan ni. Tapi kalau kita banding antara kedua-duanya, dia dua morfem yang berbeza. An di sini adalah satu morfem dan an di sini adalah morfem yang lain. Kerana maknanya berbeza. Makna is very important. Maknanya berbeza. So makna berbeza, maka dia adalah morfem yang berbeza. So prinsip 1 ni, we use it to describe things which are constant. No change in form. And the use is also constant, with the same meaning, with the same function, function dia. So in these two instances, they are both menghasilkan kata nama lah. Okay, same function, but different meaning. Okay, alright. So simple prinsip 1. Same function, same meaning, same form, they are one morpheme. Okay. So let's say kalau kita tengok this problem, this is a Aztec dialect, Red Indian, North American Red Indian language. So kalau kita ada ni, kita tak tahu bahasa ni kan, jadi kita mesti berpaksi, kita bergantung kepada makna. Okay, makna. So Nikoka, I cry. So you carilah Nikoka, Niko. So Nikoka ni kita kena fikir, yang mana I, yang mana cry, yang mana verb, yang mana pronoun, yang mana verb. Dan kita banding dengan perkataan lain, Nikoka. There seems to be a past tense, but the feature, the form is the same. So we put a note lah. What about past tense? Then we look at tea coca. Tea coca nombor 8 ni. Tea coca sama macam ni coca, tapi dia punya the first sequence is different. T and ni. And then the answer is you cry. So sebab coca is the same, so probably this is the verb. Probably. And then yang berbeza ialah I and you. So then kita put in our working notes, we say, okay, ni is equals to I, question mark. T is equals to you, singular, question mark. That means KIV first. Huh? And then you look at ni, coca, kaya ni dah lain lah. Because dah ada benda was crying, will cry. So then kita nak confirm yang I tadi kan. So we look at yang ada I. Ni ma ya na. I am hungry. Getting quite stronger. That ni might be I. Ni ma ya na. I was hungry. Tak kisahlah. The ni is being repeated, right? So our conclusion now is more confirmed that ni is I pronoun. Personal pronoun, and maybe COKA is the cry. And then what about Nimayana and Nimayana? It looks like Nikoka juga kan, past. That it doesn't, it's the same. Whether it's present, I am hungry, or past, it looks like the same. KIV juga, is it the same KIV? Then we have Nima ya na ya. I was hungry and still maybe. Macam continuous, ada continuous lah. Then we look at Niko kaya. I was crying and may still be. Apa beza Niko kaya and Nimayana? So kalau Niko kaya, I was crying and may still be. So kita dah kata tadi Niko might be the verb, right? So kaya might be, was, and may still be. Okay, so that's how we do it. And then we say maybe lah, okay, maybe lah. So we take kaya here. Then we go back to, sini tak ada pula kaya, dia ada mayana. So we have to go through it lah. Let's say Nimayana, Nimayanaya, Timayana, Timayanas. So yang sama tu ayah. And then na. So kalau ni is I. Mayana is constant. So we do that. So your work today is, can you take a screenshot of this on your phone? And you think about this. Macam mana ni dalam ni? Tapi it's supposed to be using principle 1. So dia punya form, function and meaning is constant. So after a while, so tell me the answer next time. Any question about this? Okay, so I think I'm gonna, since it's 12:51 and I don't want to go into principle 2. Principle 2 it concerns the change in meaning. Change in meaning. Principle 2 is change in meaning, and ada cerita sikit lah, cerita yang complex with the morphophonemic. So we will reserve that for the next time lah. So for this class, we're going first for this class, one after this or at a time that you all are agreeable to discuss the groups. The assignment of the groups is very important. So by so the head can actually give me the names whenever you have come up with the names and the groups, and then I'll send you a reading that you need to read for discussion next class. Yeah. Okay. These are very important because your quizzes will be on this details about these basic concepts. Any question?
Doctor, I have a question.
Yeah.
About the allomorphs. So allomorphs are variants of morphemes, right?
Yeah.
So in affixes there is inflectional affix, right? Are inflectional affixes counted as allomorphs?
Allomorphs is when one morpheme has different manifestations. So it depends on the inflection. It does not have to do, it's not really the inflection or derivational, but it's actually when you have one morpheme and like just now we saw plural. So plural is they have S and then they have ES and then they have EN, then they have zero morpheme. So it is the word itself, the morpheme itself, not really connected to inflectional or derivational. Is that, am I answering, Benita?
That means that allomorphs, they don't change the meaning of the morpheme, right, Doctor?
Yes. They don't change the meaning of the morpheme. They don't even change the function. As you can see, if you're looking at plural, all the forms S, ES, EN, or zero, all are having the same function, which is producing plural. Producing plural, and the meaning is the same. It's plural. It's just the form. The form that is changing according to the phonological environment. According to the usually the first word, the first sound of the word, or ending, or in the middle, is the what sounds are near those changing sounds. So that's what we call morphophonology. That is the study on a subtopic which is morphophonology. Actually, in principle 2, we'll talk about morphophonology, which is the change of the morpheme based on the phonological environment. So they call it morphophonology. Okay, good question. Any other question? Okay. Well, nice to be able to come back and teach you. See you next time. Okay. Assalamualaikum.
Doctor,
Yes.
for the group assignment, can we make 2 groups with 6 people and 2 groups with 5 people?
Itu dibuat by 4 lah, you mean?
Sorry, Doctor?
Itu dibuat by 4 lah, 4 group.
Yeah.
That 5 people. Okay, no problem. Can.
Alright, thank you, Doctor.
Alright, see you next time. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Doctor.
Salam.